What if I told you the creepiest house on American television wasn't even built for the Munsters? That little Eddie Munster actually preferred sleeping in a dresser drawer? And that Grandpa once baked Nothin muffins that could ruin a man's career? Welcome back to Hollywood's Backlot, where the cobwebs are fake, the laughs are real, and the tea is, well, monstrous. Today, we're pulling back the curtain at 1313 Mockingbird Lane. The Munster mansion looks like it was designed by Count Dracula's architect cousin, but the truth? It started life in 1946 as a perfectly ordinary Victorian built for the film So Goes My Love, starring Myrna Loy and Don Ameche. After the shoot, the set was stored away like a forgotten skeleton in Universal's closet. Years later, it was dragged back out, dusted off, and plopped down on Colonial Street. The same backlot that decades later would become famous as Desperate Housewives' Wisteria Lane. By the time the Munsters rolled around in 1964, the art department had a field day. They gave it peeling paint, dead trees, a crooked bat weather vane, and a forbidding stone wall. So while America thought they were looking at the creepiest house in suburbia, it was really recycled Hollywood real estate with a spooky facelift. Step inside, and the story gets even stranger. The interiors were never inside that mansion at all. They were built on Universal's stages 30 and 32. And unlike normal sitcom sets, the Munsters decorators had one job: make it look dirtier. Cobwebs weren't swept away. They were painted green or yellow so they would actually show up on black and white film. When Lily Munster was shown dusting the furniture, she was literally sprinkling more dust onto it. Every creaky door, every plume of smoke, every eerie shadow was engineered by a crew of mischievous pranksters with fog machines and sound effects. The goal wasn't to hide the Hollywood magic, it was to drown it in cobwebs. And then there was Marilyn. While Herman, Lily, and Grandpa looked like they'd wandered off the Universal monster lot, Marilyn was, well, a blonde bombshell. That was no accident. Creators Alan Burns and Chris Haywood wanted the Munsters to satirize America's squeaky clean sitcoms. What better way than to make the one normal character the oddball of the family? In their world, Marilyn was the freak. Behind the scenes, executives also liked the idea of a pretty young woman to soften the show's spook factor and appeal to sponsors. Beverly Owen originated the role, but left after just 13 episodes, homesick for her fiancé back east. Pat Priest stepped in, and the character carried on without missing a cobweb. But the joke remained the same. Marilyn was the only one who scared the neighbors. Then there was Eddie, played by Butch Patrick, the pint-sized werewolf with a widow's peak sharp enough to cut glass. Eddie carried his stuffed werewolf doll, Woof-Woof, everywhere. But the strangest bit? He often bragged about sleeping in a drawer. In the episode Far Out Munsters, when the family visits a hotel, Eddie asks the clerk if he can just sleep in the dresser. Why? Because it has handles on it. That little gag became part of Eddie's lore. Fans still remember him as the boy who didn't need a bed, just a drawer, and his woof-woof. Hollywood child labor laws required long breaks and tutors for Butch Patrick, but in character, he was just a happy wolf boy living in furniture. But the Munsters weren't content with a spooky house and a spooky lab. They needed spooky wheels. Enter George Barris, custom car king of Hollywood. He built the Munster Koach, a hot rod stretched from 3 Model T bodies and tricked out with a hearse interior. Then there was the even crazier Dragula, a dragster built out of a real fiberglass coffin. Yes, a coffin. Grandpa drives it in one of the show's most memorable races. These cars became legends, often touring state fairs and car shows long after the series ended. Meanwhile, inside the house, Grandpa's lab was filled with recycled props from old Universal monster movies. If it looked creepy, it probably came from a warehouse down the street. Of course, you can't have a monster family without monster makeup. Fred Gwynne, who played Herman, endured 40 pounds of padding and an hour plus in the chair each morning. Under hot studio lights, he lost pounds of sweat every day. Al Lewis, as Grandpa, embraced his Dracula look, leaning into a thick accent and exaggerated eyebrows. And Yvonne De Carlo, already a glamorous movie star before joining the show, was given Bride of Frankenstein streaks in her hair, but the white streak was toned down after producers worried it looked too severe. She later joked that she'd gone from screen siren to sitcom mom, with a bouffant full of talcum powder. In the end, the Munsters only ran 2 seasons, from 1964 to 1966, but in that short time, they carved out a legacy stranger than most sitcoms could dream of. The house at 1313, Mockingbird Lane, went on to star in dozens of other productions. The cars became icons. The gags, Eddie's Drawer, Grandpa's Muffins, Marilyn the Oddball, still live on in pop culture. So the next time you see that spooky house, remember, it started as a romantic comedy set, was dressed up with fake dust, and once held a little boy in a dresser drawer. That, my friends, is old Hollywood at its finest, where nothing is ever what it seems. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us next time for more scandalous tales from the Backlot. This has been another fine production from Old Hollywood Glamour. Love you, mean it, just like in Old Hollywood.